ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. It's that time again. So be you Clydeside, Stateside or worldwide, it's time to rise up, get on your stoop, get Falcon set, because we're back with another Scottish Falcons show, this time episode number 52. And I'm glad to be joined, as always, by my brother from another mother, the co-host with the most. And as I say, a lot of the spine tonight was his inspiration, so I'm going to be feeding from him a lot tonight. But yeah, all praises to the mighty Dynamo that is Des Stevenson. How you doing tonight, my brother? And may I say that is a sharp jersey.
I'm praising the best city in America, mate. I'm praising the best city in America. This arrived yesterday, and I love the fact that the top it's embroidered, so it's the real deal. So effectively, fanatics couldn't mess it up because it's embroidered. So my Falcons top isn't arriving until the middle of May, so I'm pretty sure they'll mess that one up, mate, and probably send either the wrong colour jersey, or they'll have the Atlanta or the Dirty Birds or some wrong colour. So but I'm delighted with this, mate. It's a great time to get it. The Braves destroyed the Phillies last night, 9-0. It was a bit too late at night for me to watch it, so I watched the highlights today, and yeah, they're flying. Absolutely flying.
What surprises me about fanatics as well, it's almost like giving me Timo vibes. It's like you're terrified that you get that nice number 7 Bijan Robertson jersey through the and there's always that chance, you know. But yeah, as I say, I'm hopefully my garb arrives ahead of the draft next week, because that's what a good portion of the show is going to be about tonight, is the draft, because we're ticking down the days excitedly, or in some cases we've gnawed our nails to not much left as well, so there is that. But yeah, just shout out to anybody that's watching. I know we were cutting it fine tonight, so tonight is brought to you in association with Lucozade, Natural Energy, and if you ask any Scotsman, he'll tell you it is the tried and tested cure-all. So we keep on running.
That and Iron Brew, mate. If Lucozade doesn't work, it used to be Beecham powders, mate, or Askets. It used to be Askets, but people were becoming addicted to Asket powders, so they done away with them. They banned them. So
it's a crazy world when you're addicted to Asket powder. It must be said.
Yeah. It's Lucozade, Iron Brew with a wee dab of whiskey in it, mate, and that's it. You're always good to go after that.
So, sounds about right to me. Coat the throat as well. Get those vocal cords nice and warmed up as well. So I don't think a bad thing can be said about whiskey. I know you don't drink yourself, but you do. You are a collector, so I know you are a man of taste and appreciation nonetheless. But to kick off the show tonight, we've got a burning announcement. And I know we touched on it at the tail end of the last show, but I want to kind of get the juices flowing a little bit. So to talk about the NFL draft, and I did think that was a really cool logo. With all the 32 teams there. Yeah, talking about the man who's going to be announcing our draft picks. I don't think I need to say any more that the stats won't tell you. 4 years in Atlanta, 60 touchdowns, 6,081 career yards, and also now a media boss alongside the man who paved the way for him there for so many years. We're talking, of course, about legendary Falcons running back, the double threes there, Michael the Burner Turner. So as it's been announced on social media as well, talking day 2, we've got pending any trades, we have pick 48 and pick 79. And it's going to be our pleasure to obviously have the man himself come back to announce both those picks. So Des, you've got to love that, my brother.
That's definitely a nod to the fact that he was the first ever catcher of a Matt Ryan a quarterback throw. So he obviously caught the first ever Matt Ryan touchdown. So effectively that was a wee nod to him and giving him his space and saying, you know what, you can You can do 48, 79. I would say if we could get a player in any of the positions half as good as Michael the Burner Turner, then we've done well in the draft, mate. So
yeah, I would like to see it. As I say, I don't know if running back was one of the positions I need per se, but yeah, if we can get a player of that caliber, at least our contribution level, I ain't gonna sneeze at that at all. And as I say, we've got a lot of different avenues to look at. Obviously, we do have a trade to talk about. You've been delving deep into the top 30 visits again, so we'll revisit that. And then also we've got a few sort of we put it out to the machine, ladies and gentlemen. So we put it to AI and we asked if there is a top 4, a Mount Rushmore, if you will, of draft picks that the Falcons could select. Who would they be? So we're going to tackle that a little later on as well, and we're going to give you our thoughts if there were some guys that we could kind of throw into the mix as well. So a lot of great stuff to get into, and we're not even we're just talking football, but we'll cross those bridges as we come to them. So yeah, to get kind of flying into it, the first big part of things is something that I noticed late last night, but I was not prepared to go on at that hour and break it all down for you. That's why, as I say, we're doing it now. But the Atlanta Falcons have decided, and this was one of the guys that we were talking about just on Thursday night, Des. They've decided to part ways there with defensive tackle Ruke Orhorhoro. Now, my takes on this, we sent him to the Jacksonville Jaguars, straight up swap, defensive tackle for defensive tackle. And if you want to look even more into it than that, both of these guys, that being Maason Smith and Ruke, were both second-round picks, 2024 draft alumni, and funnily enough, only taken 6 picks apart. In terms of value, I think it's good for what we want because we needed to get bigger in the interior of the defensive line. And in addition to that, we've been playing Ruke out of position or at least out of technique in a lot of these cases. This guy's more suited to a 1/3 tech, being that he is well, some say 6'5", some say 6'6". So I'm going to be diplomatic and say 6'5.5", and about 315. So he's a big load in there. And then this comes to us courtesy of the Falcons website as well. Just a few little bits about what he's been doing there. So officially listed at 6'5", 306. The guys from The Athletic are basically saying that his traits are based on his size. And what gets to me is because of that length, it's all in the arm. So he has a lot of great moves as well. Throw in addition to that, hands like shovels, which you love for your IDLs as well. So, with all that being said, obviously he's had these struggles in Jacksonville. But as we said before, there's one of those guys that we had on the short list to go, so to speak. So I'm not surprised. I will miss Ruke, and I would like to obviously finish my little segment by thanking the man for obviously what he done for the city of Atlanta and for the Falcons franchise. But business is business. So with that being said, how do you feel, Des? How do you feel about the kind of level of contribution about Maason Smith here?
Well, I've got to admit, the honeymoon is over for me for Ian Cunningham because this was probably the first head scratcher where I was kind of looking. I looked on X last night after it was announced, and I don't think it went down too great. I think the common consensus was the fact that Ruke was starting to effectively come into his own. He was improving, but the way I looked at it is, I was saying to myself, I put out a tweet saying who effectively started this, who started the trade talks, because I would be surprised if this was us. I honestly don't think that Ian Cunningham went to the Jacksonville Jaguars and asked for what's Maason Smith, yeah. Not, I mean, it's a name you shouldn't be able to forget, Maason Smith, and then start talking about maybe giving them Ruke Orhorhoro. So for me, it was a head scratcher. I just assumed there was maybe potentially there could be some cap saving in it, or potentially it was maybe a better run defender. And because effectively the one thing I did notice that I hadn't really noticed before when I've been looking at some of these players today is the fact that last year we were one of the worst run defenses. You know what I mean? Up 25th in the NFL, 4.6 carries, yards per carry. So again, it makes sense if you're wanting to put in a bigger, as you said, a bigger bodied DT in there. So, but what I would say as well, the thing that again I've spotted today is that Ian Cunningham tends to have an affinity for players that have got massive upside, but for whatever reason, they've not actually got to that point. With Maason Smith, I think there's been injury issues. And again, I think Ian Cunningham's looking at it and thinking, do you know what, if we can get just part of that upside that he did show, then again, it's going to be a win for us and it's going to be a good trade. What I would say is that when you look back now on the Ruke Orhorhoro trade, it looks really, it's a bad trade. I think we traded up. We handed over, I think, a 4th or a 5th round pick to trade up. And again, and a lot of the times he did struggle when he did get his mind in it, and he was he really was using the physical power that he's got. He was doing well, but you remember when he came into the league, they were talking about how in college he had all this power, but he never ever used it. It was a case of we had to really sit down and train him and coach him to the point where he's using that power and that arm length that he had.
Bring out the dog in him, so to speak.
Absolutely. And I remember that was all the talk when he was drafted, that we needed to bring that power and that viciousness kind of thing out. And you seen glimpses of it, but you just didn't see a lot of glimpses of it. And I think at some point they've decided that the edge rush is probably in a good we're in a good situation, and we can probably, if there's any position now in the team where we could let a player go, that's probably the place. And if it then brings in the big-bodied run defender, then it makes sense from that point of view. But only time will tell. But for me, when I first seen it, it was a head scratcher. And it's probably the first thing that Ian Cunningham's done where I've thought, I'm not sure of this. I'm not seeing the reason straight away for this one. Hopefully,
I can see what you're saying. I can see what you're saying in a lot of ways, Des. There. Shout out to Jimmy first off. It's good to have you flying with us again, brother. So it's even better that it has been a long time since you've been back, as I know the shows have been fewer and more far between recently, but obviously we've needed a break and we've needed to kind of let it sit a little bit. Obviously in the run up to the draft, but we're ramping up again. You'll be glad to know. And I can see here from Miss Sonia, so shout out to Sonia. She's dropping in that Maason Smith's a run stopper and a versatile player. Yeah, and I feel like that's what the kind of ethos is behind what we are doing in terms of the D lineman that we're looking at in the draft process as well. But to jump in there with Des's point as well, I feel like it's surprising in so much as that we were talking about it in reference to picks. Now that I've kind of slept on it, so to speak, where I'm at now for the pick that you would get. I mean, we were talking about day 3. The kind of defensive lineman that you're looking at in day 3 is probably going to be similar in profile and ceiling, things of that nature to the guy that we've accrued. So again, it makes sense from that perspective. Also getting bigger, someone who's versatile, can play a little bit of 1, a little bit of 3. And as I say, if you shore that up with a true nose through the draft, which is something we're going to talk about in great detail because it's one of the kind of big positions I need, we feel, then that's definitely something that kind of makes me lean towards, we're just going to stuff that middle and protect against the run more.
I mean, you made a great point, mate, and again, it's something that I think I had put out. I mean, the Jags have got 11 picks. And again, like that, it's a case of would you prefer the player, or would you? I mean, as you say, it would probably the best we were going to get for Ruke was maybe a first round pick. You know what I mean? So, and again, the shock for me was the fact that Ian Cunningham had come out and said so vocally about only having 5 picks. I think he's probably at a point where he's looking and saying, I think what I would say is this move probably shows that there's not going to be much jiggling next week with trades, because I think this is him effectively putting up his hands and saying, do you know what? We've got 5 picks. We need a nose tackle. We need a big body player in the D tackle in there, and he effectively is doing what Terry Fontenot done as well, which is a case of bringing in free agency or doing trades for your needs, and then again going best player available. So that tells me that all the trades that we thought could possibly happen, I don't think it's going to happen. And this is him just effectively protecting himself a wee bit. As I said, the pass rush is in a good situation at the moment. So the one thing that defense needs more than anything is a pass defender. And as Sonia said, he is a run stopper. So I don't know much about him. Jacksonville Jaguars tend to be the UK team, but I mean, unless I have to watch the Jacksonville Jaguars, I will not watch the Jacksonville Jaguars. So
yeah, I won't turn that. I won't turn that on unless I have to. Unless I'm playing the team in black and red. I've had to endure it in certain aspects, because my mum was high on Trevor Lawrence for the Cowboys because she does not like Dak Prescott, and understandably so. I mean, come on, it's Dak Prescott. But I digress on that one. But no, I ain't paying any more than due attention to the Jags.
I mean, what I would say is, and again, I'm going to get a bit controversial here. I mean, is Trevor Lawrence not the biggest letdown in NFL history, mate? He was literally generational. When he came out, they were talking about him like in the same place as Andrew Luck, saying that he was going to be generational, and it's not happened. I mean, at no point, if you hear some of the media guys and gals talk about top 5, top 8 quarterbacks, you don't see him there. He's not getting spoke in the same way that maybe a Justin Herbert's getting spoke about, you know what I mean? Which is probably one of the border top 5, top 8 quarterbacks. So
I mean, guys like Jalen Hurts as well. I mean, if you really want to talk about it, people have been naysaying about Jalen Hurts as well for a minute, but right now, I can't rank Trevor Lawrence higher than I would Jalen Hurts, because, and again, maybe that's partially down to scheme, because we all know what Jacksonville's like as a franchise, and they've done, but to that end, they've tried to build around him. They got him Travis Hunter, they brought him these college running back and Travis Etienne, all that good stuff, and he still couldn't get the job done. So yeah, I mean, you do reach a point where you go, how much of it is the team and how much of it is pure inadequacy at the pro level. He wouldn't be the last. He wouldn't be the last or the first guy to kind of come out the pros with high potential. I mean, I don't need to kind of say much more than kind of Jamarcus Russell, Ryan Leaf, Tony Mandrich. I mean, it can happen. You know what I'm saying? I'm not putting Trevor in that category yet, but I mean, there is the potential that could be his floor. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, at what point, if you're Jacksonville Jaguars, they start to look at possibly trying to get some picks for him? You know what I mean? I think his name isn't tainted in a way that Sam Darnold was tainted. You know what I mean? Or Smith, or a few of the other quarterbacks. So I think his name still is it's held in high esteem. But he's just not reached that. I mean, we all can remember it. It was literally he was a generational talent quarterback, and he's come into the league and he's not disappointed. But I mean, there's been times where you just look at it and say, yeah, you've certainly not lived up to expectations. And again, the expectations isn't on him. That's not down to him. But when you look at what he done at Clemson, and now you see what he's doing, at some point you're going to think to yourself, well, maybe pastures new is good for Trevor Lawrence, because I think he's probably in a rut now. How many head coaches has he had now? You know what I mean? So at some point he's going to be frustrated, and maybe a change of scenery is good for him. It would be good for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I would say about controversy. Sorry, Des, I'll let you continue.
But I would say, literally, if I put out a poll and you said that forget Tua's injury concerns, if you effectively looked at Tua just as what you see on the field, obviously he's had a couple of bad years, but if you were to say who would you rather have, Tua or Trevor Lawrence, I mean, there's going to be a lot of mixed reports. There's going to be a lot of people saying, "Oh, look, I like Trevor Lawrence," but at Tua's height, Tua's had far better seasons than Trevor Lawrence. So the main thing for us is the fact that Tua's got the injury issues, and that's what's probably allowed us to get him for 1.3 million for a year. So, but if you were in,
and I feel like a great thing. You made a fantastic point about Herbert earlier. I mean, they're round about that same height, about 6'6", 6'6.5". But I feel like Herbert has the arm to complement that frame, whereas Lawrence is far more of a finesse passer. I don't know if he's always got the strength when he sees the pass, and I mean, he's got that vision. I don't know if he's got then the arm to make the pass that he can see, and that's what differentiates a guy like Trevor Lawrence from a guy like Justin Herbert to me, whereas Justin will stand in there and he'll cannon it.
What I would say, and again, I've seen this with a few of the QBs we had, when you actually watch a really exceptional quarterback play, it's the wee things that you don't see that are important. And what I mean is, when you're actually watching a good quarterback, but not a great quarterback, sometimes you see the thought process. Sometimes you see the time. You see the seconds go past, because you can see that in his head, he's questioning everything. And Trevor Lawrence, at some point in time, has started doing that, where he's had too many interceptions, and he's effectively second guessing himself. And again, I seen that when Kirk Cousins got injured and he was playing that 5-game losing streak. You seen that with Kirk Cousins. He was second guessing himself, which meant he was taking more pressure, more sacks, more interceptions. And when you're watching Trevor Lawrence, you start to see a bit of that now and again. Now, from one week to the other, it can be really average, and then it can go out 1 week and have an exceptional week. But you can sometimes see the thought process. So at some point, I mean, I don't know how we get into this, but that was me just going off on a tangent. But
we love the little tangents. As I say, it's all fun and games. But it's our show, man. If something comes to you and you want to go for it, go for it. I'm all happy to talk sports, and as I say, we're pushing it into the broader world of football as well. So I mean, if you've got a point, drop it.
As I said, if you put a poll out there for the NFL and say Trevor Lawrence or Tua, I think it'd probably be high in Trevor Lawrence, but I think people are just looking at the Tua injury issue and the concussions and all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you look at probably best season, Tua is by far well ahead of Trevor Lawrence and seasons.
Yeah, I feel like if you put it to a group of NFL experts versus a group of NFL fans and ask that question, I feel like you may get a far more different kind of spread. And that's what's really intriguing, because it comes down to on the field. Realistically, and I've made the point before. I know some people weren't too happy that I made the point before, but I did make the point before about maybe we shop and see what Jacksonville would take for a Trevor Lawrence before the whole Tua thing materialised. But he wasn't going to cost us 1.3 million for a year. I can guarantee you that. And another great point there from Sister Sonia. She's saying that we traded Ruke purely because Brandon Dorlus outshined him, and I would agree with that. I'm not going to argue against Dorlus's 7 sacks, and that's why I want to get D tackle probably at 48, because I want to shore up and make sure that he can still eat. And if you're worrying about blocking a 330-pound man, that's going to give him a lot more freedom of movement. Not to mention guys like obviously Azizo, Jalari now, Jalen Walker, and so on. So, yeah, I mean, if you want a front 7 by committee and blitz, which is, as I say, recency bias would suggest that that's how Ulbrich likes to do things, then, yeah, I'm down for that. But, yeah, I can completely agree. Like, we like Ruke here on the channel, but business-wise, and as I say, giving it time to settle, it makes sense.
And again, I'm going to be like controversial again, and I'm going to go back to it. Do you remember Dean Pease when he was the defensive coach? He used to, when we were struggling for sacks, he used to say it's not all about sacks. And the one thing that last year kind of showed the Falcons fans were it's not all about sacks, because you're number 2 in the NFL, 55 sacks, no playoff, a losing season. And again, at some point, you need to kind of say, well, we went after the statistics too much rather than the results. And again, as you say, when we go into it, it's all about, for me, a big nose tackle, literally as I would say, a big boy, a big guy, somebody that's going to fill that gap, you know what I mean, and help stop the run. They don't need to be phenomenally athletic. They're not going to be if they're 330 pounds, but it's a case of it just fills that hole. And the one thing is, if you've got a 330 pound, 6'5" guy standing in that hole, it's going to be hard to run through that. So, as I say, we seen last year 55 sacks, and it didn't make a jot of difference. We still had a losing season and no playoff run. So I think last year it was all about how good we were going to do for sacks, and it was great when you seen the sack count increasing and increasing and increasing. But I think we could all agree that it made no bit of a difference. We were chasing the stats rather than the results. And I think hopefully that
comparatively speaking, like, how many pass rushing downs are you going to face over the course of a season? So although 10, 15 sacks is impressive, that's a small span of many plays. So there's more to be said for someone who can disrupt a game on a more regular basis. Because I know we like to pay these guys and shout these guys out, your TJ Watts, your Max Crosbys, all these guys, your Micah Parsons and but yeah, they can't look as pretty and as glamorous as they do without the big boys in the middle. So you need to start looking at the genealogies here and seeing if William Perry or Vince Wilfork or Haloti Nata have got any children that are of age and would fancy kind of coming down to Atlanta for a couple of years. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here.
And again, what I would say is, you ask Myles Garrett if he would literally give all his sacks back for a Super Bowl ring, or for effectively being in a team that's a championship contender. I guarantee you, if he was doing 6 sacks a year and was on a contending team with the potential to win the Super Bowl, he would be happy. Again, it's all about, and again, this is something that the Falcons fans, I think, learned last year. We were too bothered looking at the stats, thinking that if we get more sacks, that means better results, that means a winning season, and it didn't happen. So effectively, we need to look at stopping the run. As I said earlier, 4.6 yards per carry against us, 25th in the NFL. We need a big nose tackle in there, a big-bodied guy that literally is going to stop the run. We don't need any more edge rush. I think we're all right there. We just need that big-bodied guy right in the middle. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk about the big boys in the middle, because that's going to be a big sort of chunk of what we're talking about here, in addition to probably pass catchers. But yeah, as we said earlier, we kind of threw it out to AI, or Des did, and it kind of got me thinking, because I've tried my best to kind of throw in who my top four would be. But yeah, we asked it, who, if you could, would be kind of your best four guys to bring in to shore up what the Falcons need. And I'm going to flash up the photos of what it suggested here. So, in no particular order for this one, but we have defensive back Colton Hood from the University of Tennessee Volunteers. Secondly, we're keeping things home in the great state of Georgia with wide receiver Zachariah Branch. We then go to a guy, shout out to the Atlanta Bird Gang for this visual. Lee Hunter has said before he thinks it would be nice to play for the Atlanta Falcons, the big nose out of Texas Tech there. And then finally, if you want to talk about nose tackles, there is a whole lot of man coming out of the Ohio State University and Caden McDonald. So that was the four guys that AI suggested would be the most important. And when that came up on your screen, Des, how were you feeling about those guys? That kind of, if that was your package, how would you feel?
Yeah, I mean, effectively, the one thing I would say is that I work really, really hard. I work probably 7 to 8 hours a week. I'm a hard worker. I batter in. I've got my own business, and I got to say, AI is a lifesaver, because effectively it brings up players that you know about, but it just gives you the statistics. I mean, I'm telling you now, I guarantee you, after the draft, a scout or somebody's going to mention AI and how important AI is to the draft process. There's not a chance in hell that the scouts and the management are not using AI for draft evaluation. So I don't care what anybody says, but when you look at it, it just seems to be that we all understand what the Falcons needed, which was effectively cornerback, wide receiver, and nose tackles. And effectively, the AI spit out cornerback, wide receiver, and 2 nose tackles. You know what I mean? And not only that, two effectively run the defense nose tackles. You know what I mean? So effectively, how it works, I don't know, but they're looking at all this, and they're looking at the Falcons and saying these are the players that I think they need. Now, if you look at Caden McDonald, again, a name that I don't know much about, but when you watch his film, and what again, I'm going to put out a wee note as well. Most people, when they're looking at all this, are looking at the highlights, and I understand that. So it's the highlights. We don't look at the lowlights. We don't look at the bad games. We effectively take 5-6 minutes, have a wee quick look at the players and see what we think, and see what their potential is. So, but when you look at sorry, mate, on you go.
No, I was just going to say that would be a perfect time to shout out our boy Avian, who's going to be joining us real soon, because there is a vast difference between watching highlights and watching film. So it's going to be a real pleasure and a real thrill to get Avian on and pick his brain about how he watches things, how he develops his sort of breakdowns and things like that. So if you want to see a little bit more about what it takes to really get into the nitty gritty of being a content creator for the Atlanta sports teams, then you're not going to want to miss that one, for sure.
I mean, what I would say is that effectively, I've got players that I want at the Falcons, but we need to be. I mean, I would love Avian Terrell to be the cornerback at number 48. You know what I mean? That would be. I would have nothing better than that. I would be absolutely overjoyed, but we kind of understand that there's a good chance that Avian Terrell is going to go to. It's going to go. There we go, Maggie.
All eyes on you, my boy. All eyes on you.
the best city in the world. The best city in the world. What can I say?
For sure, man. And I mean, you can ride that 9-0 till the cows come home. That we will take that all day.
Listen, I said, I actually messaged Will earlier on and said, well, you need to get into baseball. What I would say is that if any of you are watching, the pain that you endure with the Falcons, apart from last year, it's the opposite with the Braves. The Braves, literally, when you think they're down and out, it's like Austin Riley will come in, home run. You know what I mean? It's just like the what I would say is the fact that Ronald Acuna Jr. is not the best player at the moment on that team and is not firing in all cylinders just tells you what potential we could have this year. And what I would say is that I take it back to a few years ago when you could look at it and say this is a World Series team if injuries don't go against them. But I literally sat and watched the Rome Crusaders the other night at like 11:30 at night because Spencer Strider, who's one of your best pitchers, was effectively playing one of his comeback games and done 3.5 innings, done really well. So the Braves we've had our injury issues, but that's all changed. So I mean, I'm excited. All I would ask, if anybody's watching from the Braves, can you please do afternoon starts? Can I just come in at 5? Can I just come in at 6:05 and watch a baseball game? I would really appreciate that. 12:15 at night.
Like I think we've said this many times, pointing at the NFL, but MLB, you're guilty of it too. Spare a thought for your international fans because we're as diehard as anyone in the good old US of A. And I'm going to throw a question back to you, Jimmy. The jerseys look fresh. I love them. Have you got your players in mind, or are you thinking about a custom job there? I'm sure Puddle Duck 1 would look just fine.
Probably. I think you're only allowed. See when you're putting your own name in there. I think you're only allowed 10 letters. Because I wanted to. I thought, you know what? If I go to Atlanta this year, or if I go to Madrid this year, I want Scottish Falcon. I want people, if they see me, they maybe watch the show, they know who I am. But could I get Scottish Falcon on that? No. And I thought, well, what would I do? Would it be Falcon? And I just thought, I'll just go London. So, just on Jimmy Puddle Duck's question, I've got my Drake London red Atlanta Falcons jersey on its way, but for some reason, strange, this was released after the Atlanta Falcons was released, and it's in stock in the UK, so I was able to get that really quickly, whereas the Falcons red jersey is not going to be in stock and sent out to the middle of May. So again, have a wee bit of thought for your international fans, because we don't want to wait to the next month. We want to wear these tops now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I agree with that. And he's saying that he likes the thought of a Londoner or Robinson, but he's got a custom one with his surname on it. I think when it comes to jerseys, I'm thinking go one throwback, one recent. So obviously, because of my love for both Texas and Atlanta, it's got to be Bijan. And then obviously the guy that made me a Falcons diehard and Matt Ryan. I need those two jerseys in my life. But if we were going to go custom, and I mean, if money was no object and we're throwing the wallet around, then I would love to get Des and I a set of matching jerseys with Dynamo 88 and Thrill 34. That would be, and wear them to a game. I think that'd be amazing, man. It really would.
Brilliant. It would be, mate. It would be, as I say, I would love to see how much money is spent in the UK on sports memorabilia, like American sports, as in, and what I would say is that probably and we're talking about the Braves now, MLB is probably in a position where the NFL was in the early 90s. that they've got there's a lot of fans there, but it's still a niche sport with UK is concerned. I know they play one game here a season down in London, which again I didn't go to. If the Braves came to London, I'd be there, but I'm not. I think last year it was the Mets and some other team. Now I'm not going to watch the Mets. The Mets are garbage. You know what I mean? So I think
on another side, I feel like as far as Scotland's concerned, there's investment, but it's sometimes misplaced because, for instance, I shared it in the group chat today and was talking about it. It's a little bit of a kind of diversion again, but I feel like it needs to be discussed. The Indoor Arena League, with teams from Scotland, England, Switzerland, Spain, Austria, and the US. Basically, they were trying to sell tickets, which are, in my opinion, grossly overpriced at Braehead, and also add into the fact that they had only teased 2 player signings. They'd also mentioned that they had a full squad, but none of us have seen it. And I feel like that's been a bit of a trend across the league. So I feel like I'd no longer want to invest my time in that. So I just feel like in terms of Britain, if you're getting into there needs to be more investment in the sort of grassroots level of things. There's so much done for the rugby academies and the soccer academies or football academies, however you want to put it, in Britain, that it will always take a back seat to sports that we more obviously readily recognise here. But I feel like Sport Scotland needs to take account of this, because I feel like there's a large and a passionate group still fan base in Scotland. And Britain, if we want to push it down south and southwest and obviously extend that, then you can obviously say that the British fans are passionate when it comes to our sport, and obviously we feel like over the last 52 episodes we've kind of tried our best to prove that as well. So, but yeah, I mean
I'm going to ask a question. But if like obviously my son's up, he's in his mid-20s now, but I mean, if you've got a kid at school, what would you rather they play, rugby or baseball? I'm pretty sure that, I mean, we were all brought up with rounders. Do you remember rounders? Which was effectively, it's like a kid's baseball game. That's what it was.
I guess that would be like kids softball or something over there, or some such equivalent.
Yeah. And you know what they say, if America sneezes, Britain catches a cold, you know what I mean? So effectively, I mean, what I would say is that it's quite strange because, like, and again, I'm going off on a tangent, but MLB it's not as big in the UK, but when you look at it worldwide, it's bigger. Like, if you go to Japan, I mean, Japan is MLB. You go to Canada, there's massive teams in Canada. So it's done what the NFL haven't done and have like international teams. Like obviously there's Canadian teams, but the Japanese league and the amount of players that have came from the Japanese league over to the MLB, like Otani. I mean, Otani's one of the best players in the MLB, if not possibly the best player. And he came from Japan. And just about every team has got a Japanese player because it's considered an exceptionally great league. And again, if you struggle in the MLB, you can go to Japan, and it's maybe an easier league for you. But it seems to be more internationally known, as in for bigger teams than the NFL, and that's maybe where.
When you talk about, I've seen some of the guys, and I know at this point I'm going to throw it out there. I feel like it's a very silly thing to say. How can you call yourself the world champions of a league that exists only for one nation? But there is no league around the world, and there are some set up, who can compete with the NFL, because, as Jimmy says, to his credit, even rugby, which is a huge sport in Scotland, will take backseat to our football. And as such, American football is taking a backseat, not just to that, but to probably half a dozen sports that are viewed as more important in the national sort of scheme of things. And that's why you can consider yourself world champions, because it's going to take investment. It's going to take money. It's going to take exposure, promotion, all that good stuff as well. But yeah, at this point, I would love to see the sport continue to grow. But as I said about the IAL, it has to be grown in the right ways, and it's not just about the almighty dollar, so to speak.
I mean, what I would say is that when you're talking again about the NFL, I mean, I would love to be sitting in a room where the NFL and the EPL, the English Premier League, decided to show each other their bank accounts, and I'm pretty sure the English Premier League would probably faint if they seen what was in the NFL bank account. You know what I mean? So if you're talking again, this is what you have to laugh about when they talk about the biggest sports in the world, right? And we understand that soccer is the biggest sport in the world, but if you look at actual dominant leagues, if you look at the leagues with the highest valued teams in the world, it's the NFL. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, it's the Cowboys. It's number one at, I think, $10.7 billion. But again, all the money is made in the NFL. So for anybody that questions that it's not a world league, it's worldwide. You know what I mean? You come to a London game, or you come to a Madrid game, or a Berlin game, and see how worldwide it is. What I was making a point was the fact that MLB, which is not as big in the UK, is bigger in other countries than NFL, as in what I mean with, obviously Canada's got the Canadian Football League, but they've got a couple of I think Toronto Blue Jays, they've got a couple of MLB teams, you know what I mean? Whereas if you go to Japan, their sport effectively is it's baseball. That's their sport, you know what I mean? So they've got what NFL haven't got, because apart from America, NFL is not the main sport in any other country, and that's how people can make a mockery of guys like us and say, "Oh well, it's how can you get called, as you say, the world champions when it's not in any other country?" Well, it's got worldwide fan base, you know what I mean? It's a bit like somebody saying, "Oh, I mean, how can you call Liverpool the European champions when there was no team from Azerbaijan playing in it?" You know what I mean?
It truly is a narrative where things get real silly real quick. And shout out to our boy Monte Carlo. Like, the price is scarily high right now, and it's only going to continue to trend that direction, because that's how millions become billions. And look at guys like, I don't know, I don't want to shout out anyone out specifically without sounding like I'm hating, but I'm just going to say it. Jerry Jones, Robert Kraft, y'all know who you are. But I digress. To kind of get sort of back on point, I guess it would probably be to kind of to throw back at AI and show you what a human can achieve. Now, I give you a caveat. I did cheat just a little bit, but damn it, this is our show, so I can do what I want. So there's two double dips here actually for a top four, and in the two double dips you can kind of go either way. But here's my top four. I'm gonna start with someone I know well. Stay home and hook 'em for Anthony Hill Jr., a linebacker from the University of Texas. Then this is a lower round guy, but one that I've spoken about quite a lot. I like Travis Burke, what he brings to the table from the University of Memphis Tigers, and I'm going to also put up his draft breakdown, and that gives you the main reason why I like this guy so much. 6'8" 3/4", and 325 pounds. You put that, you give someone that size to Coach Callahan, and he's going to have a field day, I think. And then that brings me to my two double dips. So, first off, all praises to the USC Trojans, because we're going to talk about your pass catchers, and either one, as we're going to get into who's potentially going to fall, Des, I don't think you can complain about picking either a Jacoby Lane, or with that being said, a Makai Lemon either. And then to round out my top four, you're going to have to go out west to the University of Washington Huskies, and the past defenders. And either way, I think, again, I've said before on the show about how much I like Takario Davis, but a lot of people were wanting a longer boundary corner guy on the outside, and that's what I had mentioned when I was talking about Jalen Watson from the Chiefs. And I think that to address that, you'd be looking at young Ephesians here, Ephesians Prysock, who is 6'4", and as you can see from that photo, he likes to lay it in there as well. So that would kind of be my top four. So Hill, you need your big D tackle as well. So linebacker, D tackle, maybe an offensive lineman. That was one just to kind of throw in the mix if you do want to build for the future. And then, as I say, a couple of double dips because you're going to need your wide out too, and you're going to need your corner too. So that's kind of where I landed with a sort of top four, so to speak. But a lot of that's going to depend on the next section as to who's going to slide. So I'll pass it over and let you kind of give your thoughts to this.
Well, so I went off on a tangent when I was talking about mine and ended up talking about baseball and world sport and all that.
It's all good.
So for me, obviously, you went over mine, but mine was Colton Hood, cornerback. Had a wee look at him. Speed, physical, he's intelligent. What I would say about Colton Hood is watching the highlights, he's very conservative with his movement. So you actually see if he's man marking, you see his man moving. And if you watch it quite a lot, he only really moves when he has to move, as in when he feels that the man's actually making a move to break, he then starts moving, which shows quite a bit of intelligence. You know what I mean? He's a 79.2 PFF defensive grade, so coverage 80.3 PFF grade, top 100 nationally. At some point, we're going to have to give AJ Terrell a specific brother in there, you know what I mean? Somebody that effectively can grow with him. I mean, AJ Terrell is now at a point where he's a veteran cornerback, and he's still. I mean, what I would say is that the one thing that I looked at when I was looking at this is, and the reason that obviously I had AI help, but I put a lot into how I looked at these players. If you look at the cornerback position, right, and you look at Clark Phillips III, right? Now, Clark Phillips III, if we effectively released him, I think it's post-June, we would have a $3.647 million cap saving with a $200,000 cap hit, a dead cap hit. Now, at some point, you have to look at these figures. Is anybody telling me that Clark Phillips III should be making $3.6 million as a cornerback in that team? So at some point, you need to understand that down the line, there's going to be changes to these players. And again, you look at that, and you look at Colton Hood, and he's an upturn for Clark Phillips III. And again, very intelligent. As I said, he knows the game. He's got speed. He's got athleticism. He's a big-bodied guy. Just everything you're looking for. I mean, Daniel Jeremiah's got him as number 25th overall. So there's a possibility he doesn't get to us. But if he does, it's a case of run to the stage and put his name in. Bleacher Report had him at number 48 for us. The Buccaneers mock had him at number 30, Miami Dolphins, and the consensus is he's 35th overall. But a lot, again, I know Ian Cunningham talks about drafting for need, drafting best player available, but some teams out there do draft for need. And that means that hopefully if he's consensus 35th, he might drop to us. So great. And again, it's a position we're in need of. Then you've got Zachariah Branch, which, I mean, he's one of the best wide receivers in the in the draft, mate. You look at him. I mean, his strength, his stop-start ability. The main thing is he plays for Georgia. You know, I mean, you don't play for Georgia if you're not exceptional. And again, the way I would say about giving AJ Terrell someone in there that he can effectively grow with. We're at the same with Drake London. We're down the line. You know, I mean, we brought in a couple of wide receivers, but I go back to what Ian Cunningham said is we have to draft and then effectively coach and develop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
that's it. I agree with that. Before you continue, though, we're getting some shout out from the Celtic brother. Good to have you back on, Floyd. He's saying that we're definitely right saying another CB. And a great point as well, while we're talking about the whole kind of state of things in Scotland, and having played, Jimmy, for the Clyde Valley Blackhawks and Pirates myself over the years, because of the similarity in goals, you have to ground share with rugby clubs, which is in no way ideal, because obviously you know the benefits and drawbacks to that. At least we've got goals and stands that we can use, but it's not nearly invested into the level that I feel it should be, and anybody who considers himself a lover of the sport would. So yeah, I have my qualms with Baffa. But that's for another show, another time. Sorry, Des, I'll let you continue with your dissection on some of those guys.
As I say, when we had looked at these players, these aren't players that we think are the best players in the draft. These are players we think that can fall to us at the position at number 48. What I would say is that we're then on to Caden McDonald, who is probably arguably the best run defender in the full draft. I've just put mountain. I mean, he's a mountain. And again, the fact that we effectively we were 25th in the NFL, 4.6 yards per carry. We need a big nose tackle. You know what I mean? But again, there's a possibility that he doesn't get to us. You know what I mean? The one thing is that the big issue that there's a possibility he does fall is the fact that he's a big guy, so he's 6'2", 326 pounds, so he's not 6'5". So he's holding a wee bit more weight for that height than a normal nose tackle. So he is a wee bit undersized for a nose tackle, but the stamina is an issue as well. He's not going to be there. He's probably going to be early downs. But again, if you want somebody that is going to step in there and shut down the run, then he would be perfect.
I feel like another guy that kind of gives you a similar sort of prognosis when he comes out is the guy we looked at from the University of Texas. Their nose Cole Brevard. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's 346, long arms. He's a power rusher. So he's a run defender essentially. But if that's what you're looking for, and you're only looking to give up a day 3 to get it, then that's another name that I can kind of throw into the mix for you as well, Des.
And again, this is why these players are falling, because like one of the notes I wrote is he's not a pass rusher. So Caden McDonald, if you want a DT that's going to effectively pressurize the QB, it's not this guy. This guy is specifically for shutting down the run. And then if you then look at Lee Hunter, again, Lee Hunter's similar. Effectively, he's not going to chase down the quarterback. You know what I mean? He's 6'4", 318 pounds. You know what I mean? So effectively 86.7 run stopping grade. You know what I mean? So again, he's a nose tackle. He's a big boy. And again, from my point of view, that's probably, I don't know. I mean, even last year, all through the defense, every time you went on the apps and you went on a podcast, it was all about nose tackle, nose tackle, nose tackle, nose tackle. So effectively, we brought in some players, but I think looking, and we'll go on to the ones that could drop. The one thing that I'm spotting is I honestly believe that Ian Cunningham stood in that draft room and said, we don't have a first round draft pick, but I want a first round draft pick. Because when you look at the ones that are going to drop and the ones that they've had in for visits, a lot of them tend to have had some injury issues, or they've had a great 2024 and they've not had such a good 2025. Maybe there's one of them that's a six-year, a 24-year-old player who has maybe looked at being a bit too old for effectively giving you too much years. So you can see the strategy is the fact that if these guys didn't have injury issues or didn't have a bad season, they'd be in the first round. So it's great when you're actually looking at these players and you're looking at some of the visits and you think, do you know what, I can see what they're looking to do, which is encouraging. What do you think, mate?
Yeah, it is for sure. I mean, but while we're talking about guys that can slide, I mean, we've seen it just in this last draft cycle with guys like Mike Green. I mean, I know those were character related and things like that, but at the same time, like, there are a million reasons a tiny niggling issue injury wise, or your 40 was a little bit slower than it was projected to be. You come in 10 pounds lighter than you felt you should. There's a million little things that can affect your draft stock. So that's going to be one of the things I'm watching most this year, is the fact that not just defensive tackle, but wide receiver, corner, even linebacker, there are really, really deep core groups of guys. Because I mean, I've said that about linebacker before. I've been able to get guys like Jack Kelly from BYU or Kyrell Armsor from TCU in like round 6. So if you're looking for a linebacker again, day 3, those are some nice options to have. And I feel like that's where this is where we're going to make our mark, especially if it's only 5 picks. But even if we're looking to trade down, get some more, is going to be obviously looking to see who's fallen. And I feel like, as you say, these tiny injuries are kind of some of the guys that we've been looking to kind of bring in on the visits as well. But let's give the guys what they came here for. So when you're talking about sliders, we did come with 4 premium options that Des has suggested. And if you thought we were done with nose tackles, we're not just yet, because there is another 2 in this section as well. But this just goes to show my point, Des, and that's like these groups of guys are deep this year. So there are ways that you can definitely kind of shore up in that regard. So here's what we've got for the sliders, and I'll let you have a crack at pronouncing this surname if you will, but it's the cornerback Davison from Ohio State.
Yeah, so Davison Igbinosa.
That's the one.
So
Davison.
I mean, honestly, could I know it's just I think he's historically from, I mean, that looks like a Nigerian name or some so
yeah,
maybe maybe his grandparents were from Nigeria or something, but again, so that's one of them. So effectively the potential, again, 6'2", 43.4 passer rating. So again, he's a shutdown corner. He's physical. He's 6'2", so again, he's got the right height attributes. And again, just effectively Ohio State. So if you're picking, if there's players, we keep on saying, if there's players that's sliding, if they're number 2 at Ohio State, I would rather you took them than somebody that's number 1 at I don't know, Montana or something, you know what I mean? That's
the kind of point I've made, and that's why I went with the double dips as well, because I would rather have a second choice corner out of Washington or a second choice receiver at USC than I would going and looking at your, I don't know, let's just say it's San Jose State or someone like that, Sam Houston State, Georgia Southern teams of that nature. But yeah, let's get into these potentially sliding D tackles then. So first off, you've got the double eights, which is a jersey I know you love very much, Des, with Caleb Banks there from Florida. We'll talk about these guys as a bit of a twosome and compare the two, because we're also looking at number 11 there from the Clemson Tigers, that being Peter Woods. So my first question to you would be, looking at the two guys, what they do well, what they do not so well. If it comes down to Banks versus Woods, what would be your pick? How do you feel, having seen what you've seen of these two guys?
I would probably say I would go with Peter Woods. I mean, and one of his draft evaluations, he was compared to Grady Jarrett. So effectively, again, interior pass rush. He's effectively pre-season, he was a top 15 lock. So again, he's fell down because the performance this year. He's 6'2", 6'3", nearly 298 pounds. He is slightly undersized, but again, I would class him as a nose tackle again. Violent hands, he's got the speed, and again, it's a case of there's that many D tackles in this draft that there's a potential that he fall. Not everybody's looking for D tackles, and not everybody effectively is going to look specifically for a nose tackle, and that's why he's going to fall. The biggest red flag is his arm length. So he's only 31 and a quarter inch arm length, which is one of the bottom percentile in the NFL. So again, that's a big red flag. But again, this guy's more a nose. This is a run stopper. And I think when you're getting compared to Grady Jarrett, you know what I mean, that's not a bad. It's not a bad player to be considered against.
No, certainly not. And I feel like the reason that he's going to fall under the radar, or fly under the radar, so to speak, is as much as you say, his weight doesn't start with a 3. And yeah, he doesn't have particularly the longest levers in the world, but that's not why you draft a player like that. I feel like 298 is deceiving because he plays like he's got another 30 pound, like a 30 pound waist belt or something on. You would think that guy at times is 325. I would say that's the surprising thing about Peter Woods. I've seen this size profile and it didn't appeal to me too much until I seen how he plays in that frame, and I was sold. And then lastly, another guy that you're going to have to teach me one or two things about, because this is a corner who's slipped through the cracks for me, so to speak. And that would be Brandon Cisse out of the South Carolina Gamecocks there. So what do you know about this kid, Des?
Right, let me just read what I've put. So effectively, this guy's only 20-year-old, so that's probably, and again, this is where, if you're Ian Cunningham, and we've said it in the last show, this season is all about evaluation. You know what I mean? This season, I've said before, I don't expect. Listen, if we hit the playoffs and we get the playoffs, I'd be delighted, but I don't expect it. It's effectively like every coaching staff is, apart from a few, have moved on. It's literally a complete turnaround. So effectively, this guy's going to drop because he's aged, because he's not a day one starter. He's more a prospect. You know what I mean? But again, if you look at, he's potentially a second or a third round draft pick. Now, if he drops to number 79, I mean, you're going for it. He's 41 inch vertical, 4.4 speed. You know what I mean? A-rated run support, who plays like a box safety. Now, again, the other thing that I was surprised about is how the fact that we were talking about Jesse Bates, the potential we could do a trade. When you look at the top 40, the top 30 visits, we've not had that many safety as top 30 visits. There's been a lot of D tackles, but this guy plays in a way that he could actually play potentially as a box safety as well. So the movement is there. And again, if you look at when we brought in AJ Terrell, you know what I mean? AJ Terrell was effectively, I think he was only 21.
Yeah.
And again, he's developed over time. Now, I think AJ Terrell's only at 27. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so effectively, we've had all the years with him doing so well, and he's still got another contract to go. So when you look at that, he's effectively he's a young player, but he's not a day one. Pop him in there, and he'll do. You would effectively need to rotate him, but again, he's got the size, he's got the vertical. It's just, I mean, what I would say is that I would be hoping that he fell in like number 79, because I would rather have a nose tackle at number 48. I think that's the big need that we've got. Now, the issue we've got is that if you've only got 5 picks, and there's some teams out there that have got astronomical picks, there's going to come a point where these players are going to start sliding and somebody's going to jump in and grab them. So it's not to say these players are going to fall, but as you said last year with Mike Green, you know, I mean, Mike Green, in every projection you've seen, Mike Green was going first round. And he fell because character and all that kind of stuff. So there's always players that's going to fall. And as I said, you can see what Ian Cunningham is doing. He's looking at the players that are maybe not day one starters, that there's maybe development they needed. Now, I know when you look at some of the players we've brought in the past, we don't really want developmental players, but effectively, as Ian Cunningham said himself in his presser, it's a case of draft and develop. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if we honestly think that any of these players, even the first round players, can just walk in and they're day one, but they're not the player they're going to be in a year or 2 years. They still have to be developed. You know what I mean? So but I mean, what I would say is that you can see what they're trying to do, which is great. It's not effectively darts at a dartboard that we'll see where it lands. You can see what they're trying to do. Lot of D tackles, lot of cornerbacks. You know, I mean, lot of wide receivers. They know what they. And again, when you look at the top 30 visits, it's all the same. Nose tackles. You know what I mean? What I would say
I'll flash that up while you're talking, Des, just to back you up, because I mean we do still have the list there of the top 30 visits. I mean that's not including the small school QB that we talked about from MSU Moorhead. But apart from that, that covers everybody else. And as you see, 1 or 2 tight ends, but the majority, as I say, that running back from Arkansas, but it's mainly wide receiver, defensive tackle, cornerback as well. So it's kind of clear. And then obviously the draft intel as well gave us a good hand. Once that was leaked, we kind of knew what was happening. And I feel like, as we said earlier on in the show, Des, what's kind of happened with that trade as well is we've kind of brought in a player who fits a certain need on at least on a rotational basis, who is probably as good as what you would get from a single pick in exchange. So with all that being said about the visits and things as well, I mean, we can take the icy approach. We've had a long off season to get used to it. Obviously, we've learned now to trust the Ian approach, the Cunningham way, if you will. So now that we kind of move towards Stefanski's first season as head coach, as I say, I know your trust for the backroom staff took a little bit of a hit. You were questioning the Ruke trade a little bit. But we all things being said, the players that we've brought in, the value that we've given up to get those players, I mean, I feel like if Ian holds true to what he originally proposed in getting out of this with maybe 7 or 8 picks, I'm immensely happy with the groundwork that they've laid, and I'm excited. I feel like is it time for camp now, and we've not even got to the draft yet, so
I mean, what I would say is that when I was looking at into everything, then I had another look at the Atlanta Falcons roster, and there was names that I had forgot that we'd signed because he's changed the team so much. Now, again, it's going to take a bit of time. I'll always say it's a bit like when you watch, again, I'll go back to the baseball. When you watch the Braves for the first time, you're literally sitting there going, "Who's this guy? Who's this guy?" But like Dom Smith, Dominic Smith, never heard of the guy. Came from, I can't remember. And he comes in and he's hitting 4 or 5 home runs. You know what I mean? So it takes you a bit of time once you're actually watching and you've got your mindset on the football. You actually look and see. Oh, I forgot we'd signed Olamide Zaccheaus. You know what I mean? I forgot that we'd brought in Austin Hooper. You know what I mean? So, but again, what I would say is when you're looking at the top 30 visits. And then you have a look at the actual squad. Again, you're starting to see some potential, not maybe trades, but some potential cap savings. So I'll give you an example. Joe Royer, tight end, Cincinnati. Now, know very little about him. Had a wee look at his tape. Again, effectively does what a tight end does. 0 drops in 2025. Who does that sound like? Do you remember that? Or who had no drops the year that we signed him as a tight end? Kyle Pitts.
I'm starting to get flashbacks here, Des.
Yes. And then when I dug into this, the thing that surprised me is that Joe Royer broke Travis Kelce's single season receptions by a tight end in 2024 with 50 catches. Now, what happened to Travis Kelce? How did he do? You know what I mean? So,
from what I hear and see around the way, he's doing just fine for himself. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said for that.
When you then look at it, tight ends, we've got Joshua Simon, we've got Kyle Pitts Sr., we've got Austin Hooper, we've got Charlie Warner. Now, we've discussed before, and I think you brought it up, Charlie Warner for a potential either a cut or a trade.
Potentially, yeah.
Now, Charlie Warner is a post-June cut would save us $4.75 million. We are $1 million dead cap. So
and add into that as well what Emmanuel was saying. I mean, yes, he's a bit of an unproven commodity in Atlanta so far, but Joshua Simon's got some skills too. I feel like he's not really been given a proper shake of things just yet, obviously because of Pitts and Werner. But if we did move on and save that money that can be used obviously elsewhere, then I'm not scared of letting Joshua Simon play. He played some real good games over down in South Carolina, so I'm intrigued to see if that does come. But again, as we said earlier, I don't think. Well, I've been wrong many times before, so if I end up with egg on my face, I won't be too ashamed. But I agree with what you said earlier, Des. I think that was in place of a pick, bringing in Maason Smith. But I feel like we all being said, we feel like we know where it's going to go, but you know how best player available works, and when you're a team that needs depth in a lot of areas, as I say, I'm just intrigued to see. And from what I've seen in my mock drafts, which is something we'll talk about just towards the end of the show, when it comes to mocks, what I've been finding is that for the guys that drop, there's a big run at the start of round 3. So for the guys that fall out of round 2, there is a big run. So if we are trading down and getting some capital back, that would be the time to look at using it. Would be tail end of 2, and possibly giving up some of 2027s to come back. But from what I've seen in both iterations, there's a huge run of guys tail end of 2 into round 3. So I think day 2 is going to be exciting. I don't know about a first round pick, bro, but I'll be excited for that one.
I mean, again, we don't know what kind of general manager Ian Cunningham is. You know what I mean? It might come to pass that we get to 48 and there's some players sitting there that other teams want, and he just decides, you know what, give us a second round next year and you can have it. You know what I mean? Effectively, the one thing about the first year is that first you get a free first year. You know what I mean? Whatever happens this year, you've literally just walked in the door. So again, he's effectively saying, I've got 5 picks. It's never going to happen again. So if you're not trading away the players and you want to evaluate the players that you've got at the moment, then fine. You know what I mean? What I would say is
that's the one way in which I would accept timidity. If I was to use a word, I don't mind if you want to be timid and show up and get ready for next year. But I feel like, with that being said, this draft is going to teach us a lot about probably where we're going to be as a team in 2026. If we are at the stage, as you say, where he's like, yeah, give us a second and we'll talk, sort of thing, then maybe we're not going to be as competitive as we were maybe talking about a few weeks back. And it really boils down, be all and end all, I think, regardless of what else we do. It's going to be important that we have consistent quarterback play. So I'm going to be joining Lieutenant Dan tomorrow as well. We're going to be talking some tour. So we're going to go into what the situation is going to be like and the prognosis is going to be like for the Atlanta Falcons QB situation as well. So keep your eyes open for that as well. But is there anything else before we kind of branch off and kind of side swing into a little bit of a sorted ATL? Des, is there anything else you want to talk about draft right now? Because I know we do. By checking the calendar and the timings, we will be taking y'all into the draft, because we have the Thursday evening show before it all starts. So we're going to be back on Thursday for that before the draft starts, so you can look forward to that as well. But have you got anything to say before we go into the assorted world of sports, my brother?
Yeah, what I would say is that having a look in it, and again, we'll go into this on Thursday, but having a look at the wide receivers that they're looking at, it tends to be a lot of small yak players, like yards after catch. It's again, it's quite strange, but like when you look at some of them, I'm just trying to think, but when I was thinking about, was it there was one of the players, I think, was Kevin Coleman Jr. And again, this is how you're looking at the strategy. Really exceptional wide receivers, but he's only 5'10", so he's a smaller wide receiver, but he's quick, he's powerful, he's effectively can get down the field. But again, as I say, we'll go into that on Thursday, but it's all about effectively when you're looking at what the players are bringing in for the top 30 visits and all that, you can see what it's a case of, like, it's players that would normally be in maybe the second or the third round that might go to the 6th round because of their size. But we can, well, you can't work on the size, but we can develop them in a way that we can use them correctly, you know what I mean?
Yeah, what I feel like that's if you go with Jahan Dotson as your 2. But I feel like a lot this is a common misconception when it comes to wide receivers. As a wide receiver, you're coached to play out wide, X, Z, in the slot, from the backfield. You should be able to know how to do it all. So yeah, being sub 6 foot is going to put a lot of guys off. But don't get me wrong. I mean, Zachariah Branch is in this same category. He's at about 5'10", 5'11". But the separation speed in the hands, it's like, nah, that's no slot guy there. So yeah, it pertains a lot more to skill set than it does size, I feel like. But a lot of people see off like we were saying with defensive linemen, if your weight starts with a 2, if you're a wide receiver and your height starts with a 5, it's starting to get people put off. And I feel like that's where the Falcons can really come into their own in this draft class again, is taking the people that other teams don't appreciate. And there's plenty of them, to be said. Des, I mean, we've only named a handful of them.
I mean, as I say, it's good that you're watching and you're looking at players, and it's not a case of effectively just throw it out there and see what we can bring in. It's a case that you're seeing similar. Like there was one, I'm trying to remember, but I think it was I'm sure it was Kevin Coleman Jr. And effectively, when you watch him, he looks like he's really, really shifty. He looks like Bijan. So when you're actually watching him, if somebody didn't tell you he was a wide receiver, you'd think he was a running back. You know what I mean? So again, it's the you can see the strategy. You can see it's not when you're seeing a wide receiver, you're seeing similar wide receivers. It's not a case of that it's sporadic. So obviously, we don't know what Ian Cunningham's kind of player is. We knew what Terry Fontenot's wide receivers were, which was if you weren't 6'3", he wasn't interested. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And tight ends, you either were a great blocker and couldn't catch the ball, or you could catch the ball but you couldn't block. So, but there was never really anything in between. So we kind of learned what Terry Fontenot's players were like. We're still to learn that with Ian Cunningham. I think the way you're looking at it with the visits, it's a case of if you're good enough, it's not about size, it's about how good you are. We don't care. You know what I mean? A 5'10" wide receiver that we can get in the 6th round is better than a 6'2" wide receiver that we have to do a second round draft pick for, that effectively is only getting picked because he's size and not because he's good at being a wide receiver. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
with that being said, I know he was good as a wide receiver, but I mean Nick Nash was 6'4", and we let him lounge in practice and then let him donner off to Washington. So I mean, inevitably the team saw something. So I mean, it's got to come down more to skill set and fit than just size alone, because you would think if there was any type of wide receiver in the game that you could utilise, it would be someone who won the Triple Crown in college. But as I say, it's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes, I guess. But as I say, maybe I'm biased because it's where I played, but I'm particularly excited about this receiver group and who's going where, because as I say, with the competition level having stepped up with the pass catchers that have been brought in this last draft process with Ted McMillan and with Emeka Ebuka into the NFC South. I mean, I know we've got Drake London there, but yeah, to shore up and really give the rest of the division an offense that can give them nightmares. If it doesn't already with just Drake and Bijan alone, but yeah, that's kind of where I want to be with it all. But there's a lot more to talk about on Thursday, and as I say, we'll double down and get some more prospects for you. And what we'll also do, because we've been promising to do it this off season, but as I say, we were so beaten up after the 2025 slate, shall we say, that we did have to take our breathers and lick our wounds, so to speak. But as I say, we'll be taking you live essentially on draft day. Des and I are both going to get back onto Pro Football Network, and we're going to do our last minute final mock drafts. So we will try and endeavour to put into fruition everything that we've said over the last few weeks, couple of months, about the strategies that as we understand it, what we've learned from the leaks as well, and really try to give you guys 2 different iterations of what you could expect to see, what we hope to see, and kind of what to expect, so to speak, as well. So with that being said, then what we will do for the last sort of 20 minutes, half hour of the show, is get this little, as I say, this may not be part of the show on Thursday given how much we've got to cover before go time, but we'll be bringing back a sorted ATL tonight, because there's a hell of a lot of stuff that we need to get through that isn't pertaining to those Falcons. And first off, it's something from last night's show that I particularly wanted to share out to all of you, because I know from being in the back that Maggie's twin sister Michelle Bravos, has been chomping at the bit for a little time to get on and start doing shows. And if you didn't catch the show last night on Georgia Sports Nation, then that is really your loss, and you will have to go back and remedy that real quick. And that's why we've called this first section our kudos to Miss Bravos. So shout out to the brothers and sisters from Georgia Sports Nation, and of course shout out to Shell, because your takes were appreciated. Obviously, you've got the knowledge, you got the voice for it. So as I say, first of many, we hope. And you can count on our support, and especially if you're talking Braves baseball, there's a guy on my left who may want to jump on with you sometime, so you can take that to the bank as well. But yeah, congratulations on a great first show, and keep it up. Shout out to the Choppers crew as well. A lot of good things coming from those guys and gals as well. And then I'm going to, before I pass back over to my brother Des here and let him run you back into the MLB, I'm going to touch on what happens tonight. So the Atlanta Hawks, as you know, have their Eastern Conference playoff match, first game tonight against the third seed New York Knicks. That'll be on the road. So I want to know how you all feel. Drop it down in the comments. Can we get this win? Or is it going to be a New York minute, so to speak? So shout out to the Eagles for that one. But yeah, that's kind of what we're looking forward to, and what I may do after the show tonight is get ready for some basketball. And shout out to Miss Maggie, she's just saying let's go Hawk. Yeah, I did see that. There's the watch party going on as well. So if you're tuning in for the game and you want some good company, Maggie, if you can drop the details for that, let the people know. Yeah, if you're stateside based, go along and watch some hoops for sure. Cheer on them Hawks. But as I say, we're not just Falcons, we're not just Hawks. We are about all Atlanta teams. And I'll pass it back to Des here for a wee bit of baseball chat. But I would first appeal, would you be up for watching some Braves with me and helping your boy get caught up here? Because it's, as I said to Des, I sound as if I'm being disrespectful. It's an easy sport to get, smack the ball and run. But I want to get more into the intricacies. You hear us go back and forward about football. We want to do the same for all sports as well. So Des, I'll give you the floor for a little while to talk about your Braves for us.
I was just going to say, it's quite strange when we're talking about tonight when it's 10:15 over here. You know what I mean? We're an hour and 45 minutes from morning. So yeah. and people are talking about the game tonight, right? Okay, just strange. Yeah,
I think we should start opening the shows with good night, good morning, whenever time you catch us. Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to say what you said. If you're in Atlanta and you've the one thing I would say is that it was when I first started watching the NFL, you have to watch it. And you're watching it and you don't understand what's happening and you have to keep watching it. And then you watch maybe your fifth or your sixth game and there'll come a point where you'll see something happen on the park and you'll sit and you'll shout, that's pass interference. And you'll see the flags going up and you'll think, I'm starting to learn this. I mean, what I would say is that I'm probably only 4 or 5 years into baseball. And it's harder to watch, but it's harder to get into baseball in the UK than it is NFL because it's not as baseball centric. It's not UK isn't baseball centric, so you effectively you have to look and find the games. You have to find the news coverage. You have to follow the right people on X. But again, it's a bit like that. You need to watch it. And even I'm still watching the game and still don't understand. Like, they'll talk about shortstop and, I mean, all this kind like, I'm still getting used to all that. So I'm not all in on what happens and what this is and where he goes and all that kind of stuff. But it's just really easy. You know what I mean? On the deck means that it's the guy next. In the pit means it's the guy that's after him. So there's just wee things you learn.
Right.
You know,
well, I think that's the part of why we are so getting to be so popular and loved out here in the A is because, like, we're willing to work on it. Yeah, we don't profess to be like the experts here, but all we promise you is facts and passion. And as I say, you guys seem to go for that, so we will keep it coming. We can promise you that. And as Maggie says, if you are out and about tonight, it'll be at Madhouse on Old National, College Park, Georgia, for the game. If you want to come out and support the Hawks, that's where to do it. If not, as I say, I'm going to try and get into some basketball and baseball watch parties coming up, but that'll all be after the draft, because first things first, as well. And then I've got one more bit of sporting news, or sports entertainment news, I should say, here to kind of go over, and it's bittersweet, to be honest, and something that maybe should be left for the solo channel, but I wanted to touch upon it tonight while we're talking about all the world of sport, so to speak, and that's pertaining to the WWE, and more specifically last night's Hall of Fame ceremony there. So I do have 3 things that I was immensely happy about, and then 2 things that I feel like prove why I went off pro wrestling in the first place. So yeah, we'll start off with the good stuff. So first off, one of my favourite teams as a kid growing up, Barry Darsow, Bill Eadie, and of course Brian Crush Adams, who's no longer with us. Axe Smash and Crush of Demolition, now into the Hall of Fame, and of course announced by The Undertaker as well. AJ Styles went in last night, which is, as I say, you can't have a wrestling Hall of Fame and not put the phenomenal AJ Styles in. One of the most phenomenally gifted technical competitors I've ever seen. You know the guy is good if you're putting him in the same conversation as Shawn Michaels and Eddie Guerrero and guys like that. So I'll say no more. And then you know I'm a bit of an impressionist as well. So this gives me my chance to pull out my best Jesse the Body, if you'll bear with me. So my biggest sort of highlight was the fact that Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant from WrestleMania 3 has been made an immortal moment. And I love that bit when you've got Gorilla Monsoon, and I will give you it word for word. Gorilla Monsoon saying, "What a time here, Jesse. We've got the irresistible force meeting the immovable object." And then, of course, it pans over to Jesse the Body, who just goes, "Yeah, I mean, look at the size of the giant gorilla. I mean, Hogan's 6'8". Yeah, but you forget that Andre is 7'5". So yeah, I mean, I am able to concede to y'all that I do have some issues, but yeah, I love me some wrestling. So, and then as I say, a great photo there of Nick Hogan, son of the Hulkster, and Robin Rusimov, Andre's daughter, getting their Hall of Fame rings there as well. So some great stuff, some obviously amazing nostalgic moments and all the rest of it, but some down and dirty sort of things as well about the Hall of Fame. First off, Psycho Sid was given a legacy induction. So his family weren't asked to make a speech, and obviously, if you know the wrestling industry, you know that Psycho Sid passed away just last year there. So it is a posthumous induction. But Gunnar Yudi, who is Sid's son, has obviously come out on social media and blasted what he called a lackluster display from the WWE as well. And when you want to talk about nepotism, and I know we see it in action in the NFL a lot, it doesn't really get much more nepotistic than this. Stephanie McMahon Helmsley, or Stephanie McMahon Levesque to be more business-esque. She has went into the Hall of Fame as well. During her speech, she was shouting out some of the women who paved the way, set the stage for the revolution, all this stuff. So your Ronda Rouseys, your Sables, or for our younger listeners, that would be Mrs. Lesnar. And also Jacqueline Moore, the Pride of Texas, and things of this nature. And it made me think, given, obviously, I don't want to get politic tonight, not too much anyway, but the Hall of Fame induction ceremony last night was 10 years to the day of the passing of one of the finest female wrestlers that's ever graced the WWE ring, Joanie Laurer, aka the ninth wonder of the world, China. Now, given the relationship history and the whole triangle, I won't get into that between herself and Hunter in China, but when you're taking the stage for all the women of wrestling, to not shout out one of the true greats, I feel like was fairly criminal. I understand why, but let business be business, and she always did good business. As I say, HBK, Shawn Michaels, when DX went in, was made a point of saying how important China was and how she should be inducted, not just as part of DX, but obviously on a solo basis as well. And I can understand why it's not happened yet due to some of the things she did after she left the industry. But obviously, as I say, rest in peace, China, and that's kind of what I've got for the Hall of Fame ceremony. So yeah, as I say, money talks and bullshit walks sometimes. So, but yeah, that's kind of that was the.
It's what they say. The winners always write history, mate. That's the issue. It's always the winners that write history. And if you're, I mean, I think Triple H is still running the WWE. So if you're Triple H, you know what I mean. It's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all I'm going to say is that, like, I don't follow it, but I did follow it a long time ago, and I think the issues that's happened coming into this WrestleMania is something that I'd never ever thought I'd see with WrestleMania. The fact that Pat McAfee had to come out and tell fans it was 25% off tickets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think from my point of view, it all went downhill during COVID when they went to the two nights, and effectively trying to get as much money in dollars as they could by having two nights, which just it made no sense at all.
It worked very similarly to WrestleMania 2. If you remember, I know I'm casting the minds back as well, and it's maybe not one that will be too well known to some of the younger listeners, but at WrestleMania 2, they tried to run 3 cities concurrently through closed circuits, so they had 3 different shows, and it was an absolute debacle, and they vowed they'd never do it again. So I feel like that's kind of we're itching or kind of teasing it maybe going down that way, and I'll be honest, I don't like it, mate. I don't like it at all. I'll always be a wrestling fan, but right now I'm all but out on the wrestling product, and I know the guys from the Alliance are back on it, mate. No, you need to go and persevere. You'll find something that you like, and obviously my favourite guy on the roster right now that AJ's retired, would be Finn Balor, because I love when he brings back the demon. I'm great with the whole sort of Japanese gimmickology, so paint yourself up, live the character. I love all that. But bring it back when it matters, not against Dom Mysterio, who's nowhere near as polished as he should be. And I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to be that guy. He doesn't deserve to be working with Finn Balor, one of these guys who's headed the Bullet Club. He's filled the Tokyo Dome many times. He's competed on WrestleMania. He's won world titles, and so on and so forth. So I feel like my grudges are obvious in that one.
So when you talk about Finn Balor, so I know him as Fergo DeVitt, so that was his independent name. So as most of these don't know, my son actually was a wrestler. He started at 12 and effectively was on big shows. Got to 18, 19 and decided it was enough for him. And I got to spend a lot of time with some of these wrestlers. Fergo DeVitt, I remember speaking to him in a show in Scotland, and it was just at the time when he was ready to. The rumours were coming out that he was going to WWE, and I had a nice chat with him about what he felt and all that kind of stuff, which I'm not going to share, but it was just great to see it from his point of view. But I always understood that WWE was a business. You understood that, you know what I mean? But when it comes to a point that you're pricing fans out of the actual shows, at some point the business becomes a scam from my point of view. And I'm talking about effectively seeing my son in shows where there was like 200 people in a venue, and they paid 10 quid a ticket, and the kids were 5 quid a ticket. And it was a case of they could run a show, bring in a WWE legend. He would get his autograph money, £25 a signature with a picture and all that. And he would be happy. The fans got to see a legend. He got a bit of cash in his pocket, and everybody was happy. But when you're hearing
it kind of brings us full circle to what we said earlier about grassroots wrestling. We could treat much the same. If you want it to grow, you need to make the right contacts. To make the right contracts in Britain, you need to operate something similar to what ran in the territory days. Okay, you give us your top star for a few weeks, we'll send you ours down for a few weeks, get them. We need to bring back the territory days in UK wrestling. I feel like that's the solution, out with WWE's jurisdiction, because as we know, if it's more about the wrestling or the business, I feel like business these days is the one that's capitalised, and that's where I check out with it. So yeah, I mean, it's been amazing having another kind of delve into all the world of sports with you, brother. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen of the chat, for jumping on, listening to us, putting up with some of our nonsense. But you know, it's a labour of love, so we're always happy to be back here for you. And as I say, you'll want to keep your eyes open on Thursday, because we're going to bring you home and present the last pre-draft from the AFN team. But in the meantime, if any of any last minute questions or things you want said or addressed, just drop that down in the comments below as well. So we are going to obviously do what we always do at the end, which is to shout back out to the fans and let you know that we're still recruiting. Even though the draft's coming up, our season prep is pretty much in full swing. We can always use more help to do that dirty birdie work. So yeah, if you do want to earn your kilt and come and join us here, of course you can do that. You can contact Des and I, or you can contact Maggie for the Stateside guys. And as I say, it truly is international. So wherever you may be in the world, wherever you may be time zone wise, as long as I've slept, then of course we can work to make something happen. And as I said before as well, we've got the new home HQ as well, headed by the nice logo that's sitting behind us as well, that being the SF Sports on YouTube. That's where we're going to be doing shows that aren't pertaining to football. So we've kind of teased it a little bit through a sorted ATL.
I was going to say, we need to actually start getting some shows on it, mate. You know
that's
what I mean?
I'm saying, because it seems to be going that way. But yeah, that's kind of the ethos that it at least started with. But we get caught up doing Falcons again, and now. But yeah, after the draft, we pinky promise we'll get some baseball, basketball, wrestling, possibly some MMA talk up as well. But before that, as I say, we'll give you the socials links. So as always, you'll find me at Will Waddle on X, at Will the Thrill Waddle on YouTube. And as I say, you can also find me through anything that AFN's doing, because as my namesake Big Will the Georgia Reaper always says, if it's AFN related and I got time, you know where you'll catch me. And I feel like at this point that goes for both of us, Des. So most of my appreciation and my thanks go back to you, because without you, there's I would just be ranting at this point. So thank you for joining me for the last 52 episodes, and I'm really, really, really looking forward to the next one, getting those mocks out the way.
Well, I would say that I shared your pain today trying to kind of do work for the show, mate. So I know what you get through every show. So if I'm promising I'll do one show every 52 shows, mate. So you can have a day off. So.
Well, there you go then. So keep your eyes peeled for episode 104. That'll be. I'll knock off and take a break that episode, and there you go. But no, as I say, we thank you, Des, for everything you do to make these shows work. It's much appreciated, and I'm looking forward to a lot more good stuff coming this season. So for all the guys watching and listening, thank you so much for joining us again. And if you haven't experienced this by now, I'm sure you will at some point soon. But we're going to close off, as we always like to, by reminding you how much we love our ATL. And before we wish you good night, my dirty birds and dirty birdettes, I'll pass it back to my brother and let him bring you on home. Des?
I'm going to change this tonight, because I'm going to
Oh,
say
okay.
pain is international unless you're a Braves fan. And it's wonderful because we are just hot at the moment. But as a Falcons fan, pain is international, but so is passion.
Yeah, from the Scottish Falcons, passion and pain are international. But if you are a Brave, we can talk about how sweet it is. But until next time, ladies and gents, Des, thank you again, brother. And we'll see you soon.
Speak soon, guys.